Hey dudes and dudettes, thanks for tuning into this episode of the Be Kind and Rewind podcast, a podcast chock full of everything that is nostalgic about the 80s, 90s, and more. This episode, we're sending our youngest sibling to change the channel to ABC as we list our ultimate TGIF lineups. So, I'm joined by self-pledged, Masshole, and poop culture podcast contributor Ben Shaw. So, welcome to the show, Ben.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Yeah, sorry for being late. I'm not gonna lie, guys. I was late.
It's okay. We're on two different time zones, so we'll just blame Arizona for getting out of the time zone situation and ruining everybody's day. So no worries on that. As long as we got started, we're good to go. So just give us a quick background about yourself and then your work with Poop Culture podcast and the website.
So Poop Culture, I joined about 3-4 months ago. I'm actually real good friends with Rick Mancrush. We were in the Marine Corps together, so we've known each other forever. The guy knows the stupidest stuff about me, and that's the best part.
So he's got blackmail. He's got blackmail material on you.
Oh yeah, to say the least. He's known me forever. I'm really close with family and friends, and then Eric and Mark and I, we all just kicked it off, and we all get along really well, and it gives that little boil to the two guys that are kind of like liberal and two guys that are kind of not liberal who have liberal agendas. It's kind of interesting. You gotta
have opposing opinions if you're gonna have some sort of talk show, or else everyone's gonna be agreeing with each other. It's gonna be boring as hell.
Exactly. And of course, poop culture isn't about poop specifically. We do dive into the darker side of the pop culture. It is definitely a tear into that. So it's definitely a good time. You definitely should check it out when you get the time.
Oh yeah, and just joined up with the team, so I'm excited to get going with it and to see where this lovely adventure can take us. So we'll get some more information about it here toward the end of the show. But we're here for one thing, and that's to talk about TGIF. And just for anybody who was under a rock throughout the 90s and early 2000s, we'll give you a brief history on TGIF. It was a programming block that aired on ABC from 89 to 2000 that came from the name Thank God It's Friday. However, it formed into Thank Goodness It's Funny. So I think somewhere along the lines, yeah, it merged at that point. But it was the first attempt from a major network to basically brand programming to specifically young viewers and families so they can watch not just one show, but like the entire block of shows, keep them there for, they got to keep those ads running. So That's what they needed them there for. It's just stay tuned. So it was dominating the 18 to 49 demographic for most of the 90s. However, the late 90s, it kind of dropped off a little bit, but that's because all us millennials and everybody just started watching MTV and things like that. So we moved on from TGIF on the Fridays. We actually made plans on Fridays toward the late 90s. So
and I remember just being a kid and watching these shows with my dad. It's literally sitting there, and Friday nights it was just me and him, and everybody else was out doing stuff. And watching these shows brings me back to the good old days.
Not only shows, really, but these theme songs are like some of the most iconic theme songs we've heard, in any show growing up, even to now. So every time I hear that, like anybody talking about it or just happen to come across it on TV and I hear that theme song, I just have to listen to the whole thing. So the list of TGIF shows that we had to choose from throughout the 90s was like Full House, Family Matters, Perfect Strangers, Step by Step, Boy Meets World, Hanging with Mr. Cooper, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, Dinosaurs, Baby Talk, Camp Wilder, and Sister Sister, which the last three were more like maybe a one-off season, but the first few were more of the dominant ones that stayed true to TGIF throughout the whole time. Some people, we had some tweets, I guess. Some people let us know what they thought their favorite ones were that we had listed. So we had Hipster Geek at Stephen N. Keller, who's a longtime follower. So thanks, Stephen. His number 5 would be Full House, Perfect Strangers, Boy Meets World, Step by Step, and the number 1 is Family Matters for him. And then we had High Expectations at High X Podcast, said the number 4 they wanted Boy Meets World, 3 Sabrina Teenage Witch, 2 Blossom, which I don't even know if Blossom's on there, but you can't deny Blossom and her good looking friend 6. And then we had the number 1 Step by Step, which I think is it's up there for a lot of people I talk to. And we had a Facebook comment from Shelly Chettle, Urkel and Full House were favorites in our house. So thanks everybody for the shout outs there. So without any further ado, we're going to get into our list here. So we're going to go by the block of time. We're going to go 8 o'clock, 8:30, 9 o'clock, 9:30. So however which way you have it, that's the way I have mine listed off, and we'll go from there. So I'll lift off my first one, and then we'll jump to yours as well. So my first one to start off the TGIF block is 8 o'clock, Boy Meets World. It's a good transition from, afternoon watching, because you probably watch a good few episodes in the afternoon already, maybe some Full House, so it's a good afternoon transition into early night with some Boy Meets World. The show follows Corey and his friends through 7 seasons of him middle school through high school and then college and being married. It was just, I think one of the shows, I think Eric, out of all the many characters I had, that Eric, his brother, is the one that stood out for me. And just the memorable characters they had on the show, like Sean, Topanga, Minkus, the Frankie and Joey characters. They had some pretty solid, memorable characters, as well as Mr. Feeney, who was the teacher that you thought you would eventually have, but you never did. So you're just like, shattered dreams at that point. And then everybody also, your friends, had at least one person had a picture, a poster of Topanga up on their wall in middle school. So that Boy Meets World it just meets that 8 o'clock, starting off hour pretty nicely. What do you think about Boy Meets World as a starting one?
Boy Meets World is definitely solid. If you really go back and watch that show, there was a lot of actual learning points in it that a lot of people didn't. I mean, you didn't even think about it. I remember the episode where the older brother's girlfriend, who was Chinese, I believe, somebody called her slang in the mall, and she lost it. And they're going over how bad that is, and how it's so it's actually really heartfelt. And there's a lot about it that and watching it as a kid, I thought, oh my God, it's funny. He's yelling for Feeney again. He's doing this. And then watching it again as an adult, you're like, holy crap, there's so much to this show.
Oh yeah, some episode, I think it was Sean, his family was in a trailer park or whatever, and I think one episode was his dad was super abusive to him or something like that, and I couldn't remember what the premise was, but yeah, I just remember they had those heart-wrenching episodes, they had the full-fledged silly episodes, but then they had those heart-wrenchers, man. They had the pianos playing in Full House. So so it was definitely a good dynamic of some comedy and drama for the show. So that's why I think Boy Meets World will be the first one on my list. What's your first 8 o'clock show to start off the TGIF lineup?
I have to go with Family Matters.
Ooh,
Family Matters was such a brilliant show. It aired for 10 years, give or take, 9 or 10 years, and it was kind of groundbreaking after the Cosby Show, where they were following the African American family in downtown Chicago, and you had the dorky neighbor Urkel that nobody will ever forget, who was in love with Laura. You had
I'm wearing you down, baby. I'm wearing you down.
You had Carl Winslow, who his facial expressions alone made you laugh, and then Eddie, who was just a trip.
I just love the one episode he tried to sing and all he was baby, 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 baby. Oh, Eddie.
But that show, I remember, I was a dork growing up. I remember, trying to hang out with people and trying to get the girl to like you, and you kind of identify with Urkel, and then he goes around and he makes that potion, and he becomes the cousin originally.
The Stefan Urkel.
Yeah.
He just sets the bar low for us guys who are chasing girls. At least I'm not doing what Steve's doing.
It's true. That's true. I definitely have to go with that. That's definitely my TGI 8 o'clock show.
Yeah, it's a good starting off point. It just kicks it right off, especially like I said with the theme song. That theme song is just like I have it on a couple playlists. You listen to some tunes and like you put it with your movie scores. I'll put some Family Matters theme in there as well. So
Yep.
it's a good choice. It's a good one to start off. So I commend the first one. So our first one's Boy Meets World for me. Family Matters for Ben. So next one, I'm starting off with at 8:30. We're going to jump right into Full House, a new episode of Full House, the show that chronicled Danny Tanner, his brother-in-law Jesse Kostopoulos, and Joey Gladstone with the 3 daughters, DJ, Stephanie, and Michelle, which took me the longest time to realize she was a twin. When every time I read her name in the credits, but that's just me. That's the naiveness of me growing up. But Full House ran for 8 seasons, not including the new Netflix show, which I've watched little to none of. Have you watched any of the new Netflix show at all?
I watched the first season with my ex-girlfriend because she was like all about it. That's all she wanted to do.
Is that why she's
show again.
Is that why she's your ex-girlfriend now? You guys
No.
break up after watching
that? God love her. She's a great girl.
Yeah.
Life happens.
Oh yeah.
But she really wanted to watch it. I think we binged it one day, like the wonders of Netflix binging.
Oh yeah.
And it felt a lot like the original Full House, just flip flops to the boys. It's the little boys instead of the little girls. It's the aunts taking care of DJ's family, and her backstory is a little more tragic, I would say, because her husband was a firefighter.
Oh man.
And he died in a fire.
The Tanner family just can't get away from death.
No, they had to set it up somehow.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, so that's the thing is they kind of switched the dynamics because in the beginning it was the older men taking care of the younger women, which looking back at it, it wasn't weird at the time that 3 grown men were living with each other. 2 of them, which were Danny was like an actual professional like broadcaster to some degree, making money in San Francisco. But then you have Jesse, who's an aspiring musician, and then Joey, who's a comedian. So they're more likely they needed somewhere to sleep than they were helping Danny out, I think, in this situation. Especially in San Francisco. With the rates out there, there's no way they were paying rent.
And Jesse lived in the attic that didn't exist.
Yeah, they should have showed the episode where he got the permits to build that damn attic out, because there's no way any city would allow that. There's this is a fire hazard. There's 86 people who live in this house.
And his name changed from the first season to the second season. His last name.
Well, it was Kostopoulos to what?
It was it was something else before that.
Really?
Dropping
dropping some knowledge. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's Jesse. It became Kostopoulos, but it was something different before. I can't remember.
Was it Have Mercy?
Was it season 1? It was Jesse Cochran.
What? People, yeah. This just blew my mind. Cochran. What? Is this during the OJ trials? You're just like, you know what? I'm just gonna take that Cochran name. He's pretty commendable guy.
So they changed it to Jesse Kostopoulos afterwards, and that's where it stuck.
Yeah, I don't know what Cochran is originality, but yeah, go from that to Greek, I guess. That works. But this, of course, was the time with Mary-Kate and Ashley pumping out those VHSs too, that I'm sure everybody's sisters or friends' sisters had stacks and stacks of that they would try to convince you to watch every time you go over. Pretty much happened to me.
Or every other thing that you can think of. They had every product you could think of.
Oh, man, yeah. And then we were all fooled into thinking that Bob Saget was as wholesome as his character until we all saw that HBO special a few years back. We're like, oh my God, Bob Saget is terrible at comedy.
When they roasted him, it was rough.
Yeah, he deserved it. He actually, that was the one person who truly deserved. Other than Justin Bieber, Bob Saget deserved his roasting. So, like I said, it was just a hodgepodge of when the piano played, the emotions. When Danny started getting serious, that's when you knew the lesson was coming in.
I know exactly how you feel. And I know how much you girls miss your mother. But you still got me.
You got me too.
And my axe.
and those pianos were being played. So you better get serious and get the tissues. So I think Full House is a solid 8:30. A secondary sophomore to come in. So what's your second one on the lineup?
I have to go for the second one. I have to go with Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Ooh.
Because it premiered at 8:30, and then it moved to 9. And that one, of course, is everybody knows is Melissa Joan Hart. Really big start as Sabrina Spellman, the American teenager who, on her 16th birthday, became a witch. And she had no idea that it was in her lineage until, she's living with her aunts and her cat starts talking to her. So it's definitely an interesting series. Hilda was played by Caroline Ray, Zelda was played by Beth Broderick, and Salem was voiced by Nick McKay.
I think Salem was definitely the best character in that show.
Yeah, they had an animatronic cat for it. They do the talking and everything. Then they had a real cat who ran around the house. It was pretty cool, but it was actually based in a suburb of Boston in Westbridge. So it definitely was it's definitely one of those ones that I would watch not as religiously as Family Matters, but it's one of those good bridge ones for a good night. Especially when it came onto Netflix and you could just throw it on and have it on in the background.
Well, you knew you had that teenage crush on Melissa Joan Hart. We all did. I mean, next to Topanga poster was the Clarissa Explains It All or the Sabrina the Teenage Witch. I know she's been in a couple of shows, but man, she kind of she did her thing for a little while and then she faded away. But I forget what show she's been in recently, but she's making a comeback. Good old Melissa Joan Hart.
I totally forgot about Clarissa Explains It All.
Oh, yeah.
Holy cow.
Na, 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 na. Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Part of that Nick Afternoon lineup. We'll have to get to that sometime in the future.
Yeah.
Sabrina, it wasn't a show that I watched a lot, but it was something when it got into rerun mode and I was kind of dating girls in 8th grade, high school stuff, I'd go to their house and they'd be on the Disney Channel or something like that, or one of the channels, and they would watch it, and I'm like, yeah, whatever, let me you get a couple smooches in the meantime kind of thing. And so it was always something I kind of watched in the background, but like I said, whenever I did watch it and I heard Salem be the character that he was, sarcastic and kind of just calling everybody out, I was like, all right, at least they know that the show is ridiculous by putting this cat in and calling people out.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting at the time, because how many other shows other than on TGI Friday did you have talking animals that were actually part of the genuine show?
We only have one.
You know what I mean? That wasn't a cartoon.
That's true. There's only one more, and we're gonna get to it here soon. But you're right. They did have a good diversified lineup in regards to the type of show. You can watch a family sitcom. You could watch, you could watch even some reptiles. You could watch, what was it? We have Steve Urkel just coming up with anything and everything, being a scientist on that one. So they had a good diversified genre of things you could watch. So that was your second one. We had Sabrina Teenage Witch for your second one. We had Full House for my second at 8:30. So now we're jumping into the 9 o'clock hour, which I would consider the prime hour of TGIF, because everyone just they're getting the food's digesting from dinner. They may have ordered the pizza, and so they're getting the popcorn ready. But 9 o'clock's that hour. It's okay, I can stay up a little bit longer as a kid before they try to put me to sleep. So this is the good show. So for me, the prime hour would have to be for Family Matters.
Want to do the Steve Urkel dance? All you have to do is hitch up your pants, bend your knees, and stick out your pelvis. I'm telling you, baby, it's better than Elvis.
And like I said, we just talked about Family Matters, some of the best things about it. Laura, we had Steve and Carl and Eddie. But one thing that a lot of people don't talk about, which I think is funny, got called out by a Key and Peele sketch, is how off the rails the show went as soon as they incorporated Steve Urkel as a main character. Like you said, he started out as kind of a side character, and then he got real popular pop culture wise and for the show. And they're like, oh, well, this show's about Steve now. And so they just kept putting different plot lines to the point where he had the teleportation device to where he was teleporting to Paris. He had the robot, the clone robot of himself. He turned himself into Stefan Urkel. So the Key and Peele sketch definitely lays it out how I expect probably most conversations happen in the background. Had you seen that sketch before?
I haven't.
Oh.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, you'll have to check it afterwards. It has so-called Carl coming into the producer's office and just calling them out on everything that's going on in the show.
This is bullshit, Gene.
What's the matter, Rich?
In the next episode, Steve Urkel turns Carl into a giant sandwich and accidentally eats him.
Oh, wait, that's hilarious, buddy. It's hilarious.
Come on, I'm an actor, Gene. This was supposed to be about me and my family.
I know, but after that first death spot with Steve Urkel, America fell in love with him, man. We had to make him a regular, and hey, listen, he's the star of the show now, sweetheart. We gotta play ball, Bubba.
Don't you dare bubble me, Gene. Now, last week, Steve used his transformation machine to turn Carl into a car and drive him around the Monaco Grand Prix. Come on! How many times are we gonna use this transformation machine? This was supposed to be a blue-collar Cosby show. Now you turn it into goddamn Quantum Leap. Who writes this shit?
So I recommend everybody check that out. But yeah, Family Matters was that 9 o'clock hour for me. Like I said, the theme song was huge for me. The premises, they're they went from silly premises to Steve with the teleportation thing to Eddie wanting to be a cop and getting shot at that one episode. So it had really good serious messaged episodes, but then it kind of spun out of control toward I think how many seasons was it? 9 seasons. You're gonna have to start getting a little weird after 9 seasons, I guess.
They definitely found a good way to do it.
Yeah, but man, think of those residuals, 9 seasons. But I guess I haven't seen too many Family Matters reruns. Usually, maybe on ABC Family, but maybe they're
It used to be on a lot.
Yeah, so maybe they're
definitely used to be. I don't know how. I haven't seen it in forever.
Maybe it's being dubbed over in Germany or something. They're making that Germany money, that Deutsch money. So Family Matters is my 9 o'clock hour, which I like to call the prime hour. So what's your 9 o'clock prime show?
My 9 o'clock prime show has to go to Dinosaurs.
Oh yeah.
Dinosaurs was other than Family Matters, Dinosaurs was probably my favorite. It had the dinosaurs that were literally made by. They were puppets, but they were Jim Henson's puppets, I think.
Yep, they were.
And the whole thing, it was just really smart. The baby always beating the crap out of the dad. Not the mama.
I'm the baby.
And just the whole setup of it, it almost felt real, like it was an actual family art, human style family as dinosaurs. And it goes right into one of the good setups for it, where there was a couple of shows that they had real serious things, what was it? The son started doing steroids, but it was those little furry things. He was popping them and eating them, and he ended up growing spikes out of his back, and the dad slammed him into the locker and made him stay there until he lost the muscles. And it was really, again, watching these as you're older, you think about it and you're like, holy crap, these had all these special little meanings behind. So it's definitely interesting.
Yeah, Dinosaurs, kind of funny, it'll jump right into mine, which is going to be my 931, is going to be Dinosaurs. And so, like you said, one of the main things that kind of went over my head was all the social commentary things that they were talking about in the show. As a kid, I was just enamored that I knew that, like you said, the Jim Henson Company was part of making it. So of course I'm like, oh, Muppets, these are the same people, cool. And Ninja Turtles as well. They use the same animatronics that they used for Ninja Turtles at the time. And then all the social commentaries, you had mentioned, they had the Robbie doing the steroids. They had the masturbation one where he does a mating dance. And then they had the racism where it's 2-legged versus 4-legged dinosaurs. So it's environmentalists and sexual harassment. So they covered the whole spectrum. What normal sitcoms would probably cover. It's just that they disguise it as a Muppet show basically. And it was real smart too, because I talked to, I actually had on the podcast Richard Pankin, who did the voice of Earl Sinclair.
Oh no way!
Yeah, and he was an awesome guy. He's done so many other things. He was he was on the Honey We Shrunk Ourselves. He's I'm trying to think, blanking on a few other things he's done, but a huge character actor. And he just talked about how the actors who worked on the show, he just did the voiceover, but the actors in the show who did the animatronics, they had like 2 or 3 guys had to run the puppet themselves. Those guys would pass out a lot of the times they're out shooting because it gets so hot in there. So he's like, it got expensive to shoot.
Yeah.
So that was kind of one of the things that kind of drew back from, because they only had 4 seasons, which is still pretty good, and they didn't get to that fifth royalty season that gets all the residuals and things like that. But and then it had really like the most saddest, like depressing ending of most shows.
Yeah, it did. They also skipped a couple episodes that were never actually aired.
They jumped around in the airing. Is that what happened? Like that didn't go in order?
Yeah, it was something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I do remember when the DVDs came out, they specifically said on the 3rd and 4th season ones that there were episodes that were never actually aired on there.
Huh. Well, I mean, yeah, and like I said, for me, I guess when you're younger and you only get to watch 1 episode per week, you kind of miss out on like, oh, that wasn't like what this is in order. Like I wasn't paying attention, and nor did I even know. But like I said, a lot of things for that show went over my head anyway. So watching it later now and seeing all the things they're talking about, it makes the show gives it a little bit more depth, I guess you could say. Especially like with the ending where like basically it was Earl who caused all this with his company and then making the bad decisions and is leading to their ultimate doom, and sitting in their living room as the shot fades out, you're like, this is it? This is how this is ending? All right. I guess this is it. So yeah, it was an interesting show, but I think we probably won't get one like that for a long time just because of the money and the work that goes into that type of thing. They do CGI or not do it at all. So it's interesting for the time being. So Dinosaurs was your 9, but it was my 9:30. So what's your 9:30 show?
My 9:30 show, and like you said before, I really liked Boy Meets World. So I do want to say that, but since we've already said it, I'll have to go with Hanging with Mr. Cooper.
Ooh, nice.
Hanging with Mr. Cooper was a classic, and there's so much going on in that show that I probably shouldn't have seen as a kid. But older brothers and older sisters, I get to watch it. So
you felt like the cool kid watching Hanging with Mr. Cooper. You're like, oh yeah, I know, I'm watching Mr. Cooper,
That was it was either watching that or Are You Afraid of the Dark? So.
Well, then I would have opted for Mr. Cooper every time.
Yeah, exactly. But that was on for about 5 years, and is let's see, God, I feel like I haven't seen this show in so long.
I heard it had like 3 or 4 different intros. Like it kept changing as it went on, but every intro was great. Like I remembered all the intros at one point, but man, like that show, I just remember like here and there. I remember enjoying it, but it wasn't one of those shows that I felt like had all these like memorable episodes that like like with Family Matters, with like the Steve Robot or the Stefan Urkel like one. Like there's not that one episode I can just like say, oh, this episode of Hanging Mr. Cooper off the top of my head. It's kind of how I feel about it. Even though it's a good show, I just don't feel like it maybe had those memorable episodes.
I can see that. I guess part of the thing is that I loved sports as a kid, and like the one thing that you want to do as a kid, and every kid wants to, is either be a famous sports, NBA, NFL, hockey, whatever you can get into, or he was a former NBA player who kind of fell off and now he's a PE teacher, and it's like you don't see those kind of comedies nowadays.
No,
I mean. You really don't. You don't see the down-to-earth stuff that's a lot more, well, maybe on like HBO and stuff like that, but not so much on regular TV now.
Although I probably would have happily traded out Hanging with Mr. Cooper with Hang Time, the one I used to watch on Saturday mornings with Teddy and that 12 foot long basketball court that they played on. Oh, I would totally I would get some Hang Time on some TGIF. So that'd be one to replace. But Hanging with Mr. Cooper is a solid pick. I was almost going to put Hanging with Mr. Cooper, but it was one of those, it's like I got to thinking, I was like, I love the show. I think it was more the intros and the premise, but I just don't have too many episodes I can say that, oh, that's why I like the show. So, yeah, it's just kind of a weird spot for me, but I think it's a good show as well. So, moving on to the last spot, the 10 o'clock hour to finish off the TGIF lineup before mom and dad send us off to bed, or we go act like we're asleep and we play Legos with our friends or talk endlessly while we're all laying in bed. So, my last one is Step by Step. And I think it's a great one to end the night with. This is it's a Brady Bunch of the 90s. We get Patrick Duffy, which most people know from Dallas, but for me, he will always be Frank Lambert. Then we get Suzanne Summers from Three's Company and Thigh Master fame, but of course, she'll always be Carol Lambert for me as well. The show was 7 seasons, which you think about it, you're like, that show went 7 seasons? Like, I think that maybe it went like 3 or 4, but I just can't imagine 7 seasons of the show. But when you have like 12 characters in the show, I guess you can dive into different plot lines and not run out of stories to do. I always had a crush on Dana and Al. The beauty queen girl, I never really like. She was kind of like Dina from Salute Your Shorts. Like, she was too into herself for me to actually like her and her personality. So the other two, Dana and Al, I was pretty much into. And I always thought Cody was like the coolest guy ever. I'm like, Cody, I'm totally gonna live in a van like Cody. And then I was like, grew up in a little bit. And I was like, this is kind of a ridiculous idea because it gets really hot in the winter, really hot in the summer and cold in the winter. So living in a van, I guess, is not as cool behind your uncle's house. So it was one of those things you had to face reality at some point. But and then one of the things I found out over time too with the show was the opening sequence was the same park they used for Wally World and National Lampoons, and also that the water, the ocean right there at the end scene is totally digital. I thought that it was one of those things that's just small and probably nobody cares about, but for me, I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe I never noticed that. Yes, I can't believe I never noticed that. I mean, and you look at it now and you're like, oh my god, that's so digital. But when you're not thinking about it, you just don't see it. So Step by Step, and another good, memorable theme song as well to go along with it. So all those things combined, makes it a show that I would definitely enjoy keeping in the lineup. So what's your thoughts on Step by Step, or what? I guess what is your 10 p.m. the same, or let's go with that?
I would have to say my 10 p.m. would be the same. You can't forget that show. It was like you said. It was the Brady Bunch of the 90s, and once you got into the 2000s, it wasn't as much of wholesome like TV show when you get into like Seventh Heaven and all those different shows where it's a lot more brutal at 90210. When you get into like those family sitcoms that are about the teenagers and not about the whole family, and they're doing, and it really was one of those ones where you could sit back, watch, and again, it'll have its lesson, but it was always funny, and it was always wholesome, and you weren't looking for that like turn for the worse. You were looking for that laugh. You were looking for that kind of almost joyful moment in the show, even though there wasn't anything bad going on. They still found ways to make it cool and make it feel like it's a show you just want to see.
Yeah, and it's like the worst thing that happened on some of these shows is like, oh, someone let the ice cream out all night. Who did it? You're like, oh. So yeah, and it'd be weird too, like you said, going from wholesome to some of the brutal shows. Even now, watching like, what if you watch Step by Step and the next thing was Breaking Bad? You're like, oh, quite the dramatic tone and shift here. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, no, I definitely it had a special place in my heart for a while, and then like as I grew a little bit older, kind of like you stop watching TGIF, but going back and watching some of the shows, it has some of its memorable episodes, but it also like it definitely has some of those episodes that you're like, this is dragging, or this episode's not working for me. I just remember that more often than not with the show, just having those couple episodes that are like, okay, I don't really know what's going on. There's so many characters, they're making up these weird ass plot lines for people. But like I said, Cody was one of the more memorable characters. My crush on Dana and Al. Would you have any certain crushes or anybody you related to in particular?
I mean, I would have to say that of course, being a dumb kid, I wasn't as interested in the more down to earth girls. I had the crush on the beauty queen.
Ah, see.
And I mean, nowadays, if I went back and I think about it, and this is how I am now, I don't exactly go for the beauty queen. I go for the girl who's pretty and down to earth and like, you know what I mean? And now you see her and you're like, oh man, like that's what I really thought I was gonna have.
That's a life lesson, kids. That's a life lesson right there. No, I agree. Don't get me wrong. I thought she was pretty and everything, but then like, you know, she's all like, oh, you know, these boys are after me, or I need to return all these calls, and I'm like, yeah, probably wouldn't even have a chance. So let's just not even think about it. But good old Dana and Al, yeah, for sure.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm trying to think who else I would. JT, I think, was the other character. He was more like the older middle, I guess, because Cody wasn't a brother; he was a cousin, right? So
Yeah,
I guess
JT
JT would be the older brother, and yeah, I always thought he was a cool guy. He had the slick back hair, he's just all laid back, trying to get with the girls. I'm like, oh yeah, that's totally JT's the guy I strive to be. And then you get a little older, you're like, yeah, JT's not the guy I should strive to be. I should be somebody else, not him. But yeah, step by step. Always a solid one. I haven't actually watched an episode in a while, so it's just one of those. If I hear a theme song, of course, I'm just gonna sit there and probably watch the rest of the episode. But
Yeah, of course.
but yeah, that rounds off the 10 o'clock hour for the TGIF before we get all sent off to bed. Do you have any honorable mentions, ones that you wanted to put on that you just like, I just couldn't do it, couldn't make the list?
Well, like I said, I would definitely add Boy Meets World. That one was just it. Like we said before, who didn't have a crush on Topanga? Who didn't want to be Corey in that situation to be growing up and be with the girl he's going to be with, you know, and just have that situation work out that way and have, you know, I want to run out to my backyard and be like, feeding! Like, who doesn't want to have that neighbor that you can just go talk to who is like your surrogate father, like, and has he had better advice than their dad. He was the father figure.
He did actually. He was their Wilson for Boy Meets World.
Yep. It just no fence to cover the face, you know.
That's true. He's had that porn star mustache.
Yeah.
Well, nice. Yeah. So yeah, Boy Meets World's a solid one. The other one that I think I was trying to put on was either Sister or. What was the other one I was thinking of? I'm blanking right now. Sister was a good one. It was only on there for a short period, and then we went to like the CW or something. So I always enjoyed the show, but it was one that was just on shortly that I almost put on. And the other one, God, why can't I'm blanking on the other one? Oh, Perfect Strangers. Yes, yep. Perfect Strangers. But the thing is, when that came out, that was like super, not adult comedy, but it was just like kind of comedy that like I would like kids just weren't gonna get, even if you try. Like it was kind of, It wasn't really slapsticky. It was more like situational because Balky was like a foreigner, and you know all these foreign, you know, fish out of water situations where as a kid you're like, I'm 8, I don't know what fish out of water situations are like. What the hell's going on? So even though I do make lots of references to Perfect Strangers throughout my life, and nobody ever gets, I just couldn't make the list for me. But it's still a pretty decent, you know, a solid TGIF show that didn't launch the careers of either actors. So sorry to say.
Yeah, it was definitely, like you said, it was definitely one of those shows that you could relate to. I guess for me, it was good, but it just didn't fit that lineup. It didn't really mesh into what they were aiming for. So I can see why. I mean, it lasted like a season, right?
Yeah, I felt like it should have been like on a Fox lineup with like Ally McBeal or shows like that or something like that. Not a TGIF family oriented.
With New York Undercover.
Yeah, exactly.
Prior to New York Undercover.
In the first season of Law and Order. So, yeah, I think it kind of goes in that kind of lineup. I agree. So yeah, those are some good honorable mentions. Well, Ben, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on the podcast. Where can people find you online? They want to follow you, or you know, see what other activities you got going on or coming up.
So our Facebook is www.poopculture.com. If you Google it, we should be the first one that pops up. Just make sure you don't click on the ones that are actually related to poop. And then my Twitter handle is Shawbag6. I do run the Facebook also, so if you guys want to search for us, search for Poop Culture. It's got the new PCU border on it, which is now part of our whole new network that we're just starting, which Carlos is now a huge part of.
Oh, yes.
So we definitely have up and coming shows. We're definitely getting more and more into interviews. Where we actually those guys are interviewing right now as we speak. Dr. Miami, a big plastic surgeon.
Oh man. Hopefully you guys get a team discount on your next surgery.
I hope so. I didn't know so. But yeah, so if you go on Twitter, Rick Mancrush at Rick Mancrush is the lead host, and then at Mark James Poop is Mark James, and then Eric Mocker is Eric, and like I said, I'm Shawbag6, and then at Poop Culture is our main site. So check us out there, absolutely.
Well, nice. Yeah, I appreciate you guys considering me. I'm excited to get on the team and see where this awesomeness can take us. Getting on the Facebook chat, I feel like I'm already light years behind. I gotta start getting into that Facebook chat. I don't know what to do, actually. I'm already 4 conversations behind.
I'm 8 million conversations behind. I'll check my phone and I'll have like 80 messages, and I can't go back through those. Nah. I can't answer my phone all the way through the day like those guys.
Oh man, yeah. It's like I have time, but I was like, as soon as I'm answering one, the next one's just as funny. So I was like, should I answer that one now? Which one do I answer? Like, oh man. So it's fun. So far, it's gonna get some getting used to, but I have no complaints whatsoever. So again, I appreciate you guys considering the Be Kinda Rewind podcast. We're excited to be part of the Poop Culture podcast. So thanks everyone for tuning into this episode of the Be Kinda Rewind podcast. Please subscribe, like, follow, and rate the podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, and now Spreaker, since I've just teamed up with the most bodacious people at the Poop Culture community. So check out my podcast and other podcasts on their website at poopculture.com. So that's right, it's poopculture.com. So thanks everyone, and be excellent to each other.